On today's video, we're going to be talking about snitching. The best thing somebody can do for you is snitch on you. The moment somebody snitches on you, it's going to get you off the streets and possibly even save your life. Why, you should be glad that somebody snitched on you. Now, when somebody first snitches on you, you're hurt. Your emotions are flared up. You did all these crimes with somebody, and now they are talking to the law and putting the heat on you. Well, here's the thing about snitching. There is one way to completely eliminate the possibility of snitching yourself, you not being a snitch, and two, not getting snitched on. If you do not break the law, you will never have to worry about snitches. So if you're really worried about snitches that much, the best place to start would be by not breaking the law. Now, to be a snitch, you have to be a criminal. Let me explain to you why. If I'm a civilian and I call the police, I'm not snitching. A snitch is somebody who is part of your inner circle, commits crimes with you, and then they flip on you and call the cops. So if somebody is committing a crime with you, you would assume that that person, because they're engaging in criminal activity, isn't going to go and talk to law and put you in trouble. However, this is what a lot of people don't understand about snitching. Only people who are involved in criminal activity with you can snitch on you. If somebody is a civilian and they're snitching on you, or talking to the law on you, it is because you as a criminal were so careless in your criminal activity that you expose yourself first. In other words, in order for somebody else to snitch on you, you have to first self-snitch on yourself. Example being, guy across the street moves in, he's got cars in and out all day. You call the cops and say, hey, that's probably a trap house. Is that snitching? No, it's not. Because you, as a criminal, were the one who exposed your criminal activity to the open public. If you had been careful about your criminal activity, then the guy across the street would have never known that you were doing whatever illegal activities you were involved in. So we see that before somebody else can snitch on you, you have to first, you snitch on yourself. If you are careful about your criminal activities, then random strangers cannot snitch on you. Now, the morality of snitching is that you are part of a criminal enterprise, and when the law shows up, you completely forget your loyalty to your buddies and switch loyalty to the law for a benefit. The idea of snitching is putting information that is private into the realm of public. Now, here's the problem with that. Many times when people are involved in illegal activities, they're posting it on social media. They're being so reckless with their behavior that even their neighbors across the street who they don't know are able to perceive that you are involved in illegal activities because of your behavior. And thus, the person who brings this knowledge to the public that you're involved in activities that are illegal, many times isn't the initial person talking to law enforcement who you label as a snitch. It's actually yourself, because you're the one who made it public knowledge by your reckless behavior that you are involved in criminal activity. So what happens with a lot of people is that they are careless criminals. They're putting it on social media, or they're being so reckless with their criminal activity that everybody in the neighborhood knows that they are involved. In that case, it's not the person who talks to law enforcement and says, hey, that guy over there is doing something illegal. It's actually the person who's committing the crime who's making it public knowledge. And when it hits public knowledge, those individuals may choose to or not to talk to law enforcement because, after all, they are civilians. So the notion that a civilian goes and snitches on you is not really labeling that person a snitch accurate. Now, when I was younger, I was involved in criminal activity, and I did end up having to deal with a real snitch. Now, what made this person a snitch is that they were doing something illegal with me, and when the cops showed up, they talked to the police, not only about the crime we committed together, but they told the police the scope of the criminal activity that I was involved in hopes that by talking to law enforcement about how much of a criminal I was, that they were going to cut slack on him. And in the back seat of that police car is your best friend who you were committing crimes with. Now, at first, you're going to feel betrayal, you're going to feel hurt. But I'm going to tell you now that I'm really thankful that this person snitched on me. Because the moment that person snitched on me, I learned a few things about life. You're running with all these people. You're breaking the law together. You're hurting other people together. And the moment that these people get jammed up, the first thing they do is snitch you out. You thought they were homies. You thought they were down with you. They thought you thought they were your buddies. But the moment things go crap, they go and talk to law enforcement. You're in prison. Everybody in that prison is a criminal. So when you are taken to prison involuntarily, and then you talk to the law, at that point you are a snitch within the prison system, because it's understood that everybody inside the prison is a criminal and you're all being housed together. So at that point, you're no longer a civilian, you're an inmate. If you're an inmate and you talk to the law, then you are a snitch. So somebody who's inside the prison system, if they talk to the police and the guards about criminal activity, they are definitely a snitch, because they are, again, confined to being in a place with criminals. Back to the person that snitched on me. At first, I was very resentful for this person because they literally told law enforcement all the criminal activities that me and him were doing together. Could have put me away for a really long time. So luckily at that time, I had family members who were not involved in my criminal activities who went to the victim and they made a complete restoration to the victim. So my family talked to the law enforcement officers that came to my house, and they talked to the victim and they made a complete restoration to the victim. Not only did my family members repair the damage that I did to this property that was commercial, but they also repaired other damages that that property had already to ensure that this person wouldn't press charges. Made amends with the victim to repair the damages so that the victim wouldn't press criminal charges. Because at this point, we were both red-handed. And now, of course, my family told me, what do you think my family told me? We told you these kids weren't your friends. How long have I been telling you that these kids weren't your friends? You go and commit crimes with them and you think they're loyal, you think they're your friends, you think they're gonna hold the camp down, but when things go south, they're the first ones in the backseat of a police car parked in front of your mother's house, pointing over there and saying, that's Jose. So the lesson that we can learn from this is simple. Despite the fact that at first I had a lot of resentment for this individual for snitching me out, they did me a fine deed. Why am I thankful for my snitch? Because this individual taught me that perhaps I shouldn't be doing criminal activities with other people because they're not going to be loyal. If this kid who got arrested because we were both at a crime scene together, I got away, but he got caught, if he had kept it real and not been a snitch, he would have gone off to prison or jail. And I would have had homies in jail doing time for me. That cycle would have propensed me into continuing criminal activities, thinking that the people I was doing those crimes with were going to be loyal to me. So I'm actually very thankful that this person put a stop and end to my criminal activity. Not only did it save me from running into a life of crime, but it also prevented more people from being victimized by the things that we were doing at that time. Now, I don't think me and this person are ever going to have a relationship. We're never going to be friends, never going to like this person. But I'll tell you this, I'm very thankful for the fact that this individual told the police and put a complete end to those criminal activities. Because if he had not put me into the law, I would have continued running with those same crew of kids who were not loyal, and second, leading me down a path that was going to destroy us and a lot of other people. So just so you understand, the definition of a snitch is somebody who is doing crimes with you. If a neighbor across the street calls the cops on you, he's not the snitch. You self-snitched on yourself by being a reckless criminal, leaving a trail that other people could follow. Now, I know in Southwest Florida right now, And on the internet, there's a thing going around where they bring out paperwork and say, this person's a snitch, that person's a snitch, that person got snitched on, or this and that. Let me tell you something. The best thing that can happen to you is for somebody to snitch you out so you can put a complete end to the criminal activities that you are doing. In fact, sometimes getting snitched out by somebody else will be a saving grace to you. Because once one snitch comes about, then everybody else in that criminal enterprise has the opportunity to walk away from it and say, well, there's a snitch up in here, so now I can leave this behind. Because honestly, many times when you are involved in criminal activities, even if you are no longer interested in continuing those criminal activities, you can't walk away from it unless there's a snitch in the camp. If there's a snitch in the camp, then everybody involved in that crew has the ability to say, well, you know, I never wanted to leave the crew, but if there's a snitch, I can't be part of this. Associating with so-called snitches. Well, if you're not involved in any illegal activities with an individual, then why the crap should you care? I mean, I have business partners that I know are shady people that I don't like their business ethics. I may not like their morals and ethics in general, but you work together and do videos with them. For example, on my YouTube channel, I interview homeless people. Does that mean that I agree with every single mindset that these people have? Absolutely not. I don't. If I only interviewed people who had the same exact mentality as I do, we wouldn't have a YouTube channel. My advice to anybody who's currently in a gang is the following. If you are a member of a gang, as soon as somebody else starts snitching, that's the perfect opportunity for you to say, hey, there's snitches up in here, I can't be part of this. It gives everybody a chance to walk away from this criminal enterprise. And I am so thankful that when I was on the streets running with a bunch of kids, snitches finally came out. If those snitches hadn't came out, who knows how far those criminal activities with those individuals would have got me. Now, these are kids that we grew up together. We went to elementary school, middle school, and some of us didn't even make it to high school. But we started this whole journey together. And today, none of those kids are friends anymore. Some of us are labeled snitches. Some of us, like me, were like, oh, y'all snitched on me, so I can't be around these snitches. So at the end of the day, everybody picked their own paths. But it was all thanks to those snitches who destroyed the trust among us. And thanks to that, we were able to all find our paths. And today, thankfully, all the people that were initially involved in criminal activity together are living normal lives. If that person had not snitched on us, we would probably all be in prison, because that's the path that this life was leading. If you join a gang, there are going to be snitches in that gang. There isn't a single criminal enterprise, from the Mexicans to the Americans to the blacks. There isn't a single criminal enterprise that is not at some point affected by a snitch. So if you think that you and your boys are going to move slick and you're going to commit crimes and nobody's going to know about them, those people that commit those crimes with you know about those crimes, and one of them will tell law enforcement. I cannot think of a single person that I grew up with that joined a gang that today has a successful life. They're either in prison, homeless, in jail. They have a criminal record so long that the only jobs they can get are doing absolutely the worst jobs in society, from landscaping to driving a garbage truck to perhaps maybe working at a restaurant at best. Especially here in Southwest Florida, every single crew has a snitch. It happened to me. It happened to every single gang and every single group of criminals that is out here. You will eventually have a snitch who's going to tell law enforcement all or part of the criminal activities that you are involved in. The best way to avoid snitches, in fact, the only way to avoid snitches, is by not breaking the law. If you're not breaking the law, you will never have to worry about a snitch. Once you break the law, you're going to go to jail or prison. And jails and prisons are absolutely filled with snitches. And then you're going to be labeled a snitch, or you're going to have to go hurt somebody for being a snitch, all of which will happen to you if you end up in prison or jail, because then you are part of a criminal enterprise called the prison system. But just so you are clear, the definition of a snitch On the outside of the prison system, out here in the free world, the definition of a snitch is somebody you are committing crimes with who changes loyalty the moment they get caught by the law. If you're not committing a crime with somebody and you talk to law enforcement, that's not snitching because you don't have any moral obligation to this person. For example, if I right now have my house and my kids, my wife, my family, everything's doing good right here in my house, and a guy moves across the street, he's involved in criminal activities, they're doing shootouts, when they shoot him, he shoots back, and now I got a broken glass in front of my house because they're shooting across the street, that's not snitching. My obligation and my loyalty is not to a criminal that lives across the street, it's to my family. So that's not snitching. If you call the police on a guy across the street, that's not snitching because your loyalty and your obligation isn't to a criminal that lives across the street. You don't pay his rent. He lives over there, you live over here. That's not snitching. Now, somehow, and let me just break this down to you so you guys can understand. You can go to FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. You put in your address. Now hear me out, listen to me. In case you're not listening, listen very carefully. If you're on the streets and you think you're a gangster and you live in the state of Florida, you go to FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And you'll put your address into that website and it's gonna ask you, who can I snitch on? Just playing, that's not what it asks you. It's gonna ask you for your address. When you put in your address, you're gonna see a map of your neighborhood. And it's gonna put you on that map where every single registered offender. Now these are people who commit the worst crimes. See, there's nothing lower in prison than somebody who is a registered offender. These are the absolute scummiest people where even other criminals don't wanna be around. Even people who are involved in crime don't wanna be near these individuals. But here's what's interesting. When you look at all the gang territories, all the hoods, all the hangout spots, they are usually within very close proximity to those places. Let me give you an example. In Sarasota or Bradenton, the area that I currently live in, the highest concentration of gangs and criminal activity, the hood, is gonna be, let's say, MLK in Sarasota, okay? Now, what's interesting is that the highest concentration of registered offenders in Sarasota just happens to be off of MLK in Sarasota. In Bradenton, Florida, the hood is along US 41. These are the worst neighborhoods in Bradenton, in general terms speaking. Also, the highest concentration of registered offenders in Bradenton is there. If you go to Fort Myers, the hood is possibly off of Dunbar or off of Tice or Pine Manor. These are the hoods in Fort Myers. Well, the highest concentration of registered offenders is in the hood. Now, what's interesting about this is the individuals that represent their hood, they represent, I'm from here, I'm from Fort Myers, I'm from Fort Myers. Those neighborhoods have the highest concentration of registered offenders. Now, I live in Lakewood Ranch, a nice suburb of Sarasota. Here where I live, if you go on that map, there are only 5 registered offenders in a 5-mile radius. If you grab that same map and drag it over to the hood, there may be 500 registered offenders in that same area. If you were to commit a crime in my neighborhood here in Lakewood Ranch, we would snitch, as you would call it. Yeah, we would call the cops. But what's interesting is that here in Lakewood Ranch, we're a bunch of snitches. We're a bunch of, we talk to the police here, right? Oh, Lakewood Ranch, that gets no respect. Well, if you commit a crime here in Lakewood Ranch, please believe you're gonna get snitched out. But when you look at that map, I don't have to live in close proximity to registered offenders. So what's interesting about this is that the people that claim to be the realest, the trillest, and they even represent the neighborhoods they live in, within their own neighborhoods are the highest concentration of the most undesirable criminals that exist on earth, and they do absolutely nothing about that problem. They don't hurt them and they don't move to a place that's better. In fact, the rules of the street dictate that you have to live in that neighborhood, get a criminal record, not talk to law enforcement, will keep you in that neighborhood in close proximity to those people that are considered undesirable by that same criminal element that's telling you that you can't do that. In other words, by following the rules of the street, you are going to end up having to be in criminal organizations that are going to have snitches, and to live in neighborhoods that have the absolutely most undesirable criminals of them all, even worse than snitches. I seen a lot of kids that when they were growing up thought it was cool to be in a criminal organization. Those kids today have nothing. They are either in prison, homeless, they've had to move to other states because they can't stay in the state of Florida because if they get one more felony, they're gone for life, etc., etc. These people, their lives are so out of whack that they can't even have a Facebook account. These people literally don't exist on the face of the earth. They're complete nobodies today. However, thanks to my snitch that convinced me that I was never going to be involved in any more criminal activities because I knew that people were going to snitch on me, here I am in Lakewood Ranch living a very nice suburban lifestyle. So if you want to go ahead and join a gang, just know this. There are going to be snitches in that gang. If you are in a gang right now, the people that you are doing illegal activities with, at one point or another, one of those people is going to break. And the point that one person breaks means that everybody in that criminal organization is going to wonder who's next, which means at the end of the day, you're giving your loyalty to a group of people that absolutely don't care about you. Now, what happens to a lot of individuals is that at one point or another, they end up being labeled a snitch because they realize that loyalty to their family or their household, they find that their real loyalty might be to a parent, might be to a wife or a family member. I don't know if you guys know this, but the real criminal organizations in other countries, the first thing they make you do, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can look it up, it's on the internet. In other countries, the first thing they make you do is victimize your own family back to back to back to back to ensure that you're first not loyal to other people before you are to your criminal organization. In other words, you want to join the gang, first person you're going to go after might be your own mother, might be your brother, might be your sister, might be one of your friends. They do that to you to make sure that you're not loyal to anybody else. Because at the end of the day, if you have loyalty to your family and the people you love, you're not going to have loyalty to a gang. Of course, all that changes when you go to jail or prison, because then you're part of a beast that everybody's a criminal, so it's assumed that nobody there should talk to law enforcement. Again, the best way to avoid being labeled a snitch is, of course, by not doing criminal activities, because at the end of the day, what a snitch is somebody who's part of your crew and they flip on your crew. But people today aren't getting snitched out like that. Dudes are out here putting the name of their gang next to their social media. You'll see this. You'll see Larry WWW, whatever the gang initials are, on their Facebook profiles, their YouTube channel. They'll actually put the initials of their gang in their Instagram, their Facebook, and their YouTube channels. They're slapping the name of the initials of their gangs on their actual name, on their social media. In other words, how can somebody who's literally snitching on themselves, well, you're the one that's putting it out there, you know? Yeah, if you're the one that's putting it out there that you're part of a criminal enterprise, and then they engage in all types of crappery, okay? Most homicides that are happening right now, the individuals that are getting killed are gonna have the gang initials on their social media profile name. So it's no secret what association or affiliation they have. If they're making music, they're talking about the people they've killed, the people that they're trying to retaliate. It's a never-ending cycle of incriminating documents to the point where now when somebody gets killed, before they even get killed, you already know who's going to kill them. Which, by the way, if you are in a gang and you have a rival, and when something happens to that rival, it's the law enforcement already knows that it's going to be you because you guys are beefing between each other. You've been snitched on before the crime even gets committed. You're already snitched on. The final irony of being a criminal is that once you are incarcerated, You're going to live in a building with police officers who are going to put you in a room with cameras, and they already know who the snitches are, and they're probably going to put those same snitches in the dorm you're in. So that's the final irony of being a criminal, is that you're going to be housed by the police themselves. Once you are in a prison or in a jail, you're being housed by the police. The police, yes, the people that you are afraid of, you're trying to hide from, you're going to live in their basement practically, which is the irony of crime at the end of the day, is that once you do get caught, once somebody does snitch on you, the people you are hiding from are actually going to be the ones who, you're going to live in their basement practically. A lot of times when young people consider committing crimes by themselves, they're too afraid to do it. But there's one thing that will make a young person feel 10 times braver than what they really are. That's having friends and peers around them to see them commit a crime. The level of boldness that you obtain by having your peers around you makes you 10 times more brave than what you really are. And a lot of times when young people commit crimes, they would never commit those crimes by themselves. But the moment they got one of their best friends by their side, that's when they become brave and decide that they want to be criminals.